Okay, let's talk about strings and what strings are in Java. Let's open our project from before. We're going to go to File, Open, and it's Demo1 Java. This is the file that we created before. The class is Demo1. It's got one function or method called main, and that method prints out hello world. In Java, anything between double quotes is what's called a string. It could also be called a character string. And say, well, why is it called a string? What's the purpose of calling it a string? Well, a string is simply one or more characters put together to form a piece of data. And going back a long time ago, someone decided, let's call this a string because it's a string of characters. Okay, so in any case, we have this string that says hello world. Now, this is a string literal, which means that it's exactly what it is. It's not a variable. It can't be changed unless I retype it. A literal is different from a variable. Let's create a string variable. I'm going to create a string variable, string s. Now, s is a string variable, and I can assign a string to that variable. S equals hello world. And now, instead of putting the literal hello world in the println function, I can put the string variable s. Let's see what happens. I'm going to compile it, and I made an error. What's the error? The string has to be declared with a capital S. When you're creating a string variable, you start out by saying string with a capital S and then the name of your variable. And what this tells the computer is whenever it sees a variable named s, it's going to be a string variable. Okay, so let's run this and see what happens. Well, it did exactly what it did before. It printed out hello world. Now, the good thing about using string variables is that you can change their value. For example, I'm going to copy these two lines and I'm going to paste them down here, and I'm going to change the word hello to goodbye. Let's see what happens now. I'm going to compile it. I'm going to run it. It printed out two lines now, hello world, goodbye world. In both cases we used the string variable s, but all we did was we changed the value of that variable by assigning different strings to it. Now, suppose we wanted to put quotes around world, around the word world. What would happen if we did that? Suppose I put a quote here and a quote here, and I go to compile it. What's going to happen? There's an error. Why is there an error? Because when you're creating a string variable, there can only be a quote at the beginning and the ending of the string. If there are quotes in between, that creates an error. So how can we print out this quotation mark if it's inside a string? And the way we do that is we precede it with a slash character. Let's see what happens now. Compile it. Run it. Now the quotes are coming out in the string. So there are special characters that if you want to include them inside of a string, they must be preceded by a slash, and that slash tells the compiler this this character is supposed to be printed out with the string. It's not defining the string. It's not at either end of it. And there are different special characters. Let's go over what they are. I'm going to type them here. I'm going to create a comment section, and you know that you create a comment section like this, right? A slash asterisk starts the comment section, and an asterisk slash ends it. So I'm going to put in some comments, and comments are things you put into the program that don't do anything. The computer doesn't execute them. They're just for other programmers or for yourself to look at as a reminder. And we're going to call these escape characters. And I'll tell you what escape means in just a second. So this is for a double quote. This is for a tab character. This is for a backslash. This is for a new line. And this is for a single quote. Okay, so these are, why do they call them escape characters? It's kind of, they're not escaping from anything. So escape means that they go outside of the normal processing of a string. When the computer looks at this string and it sees this backslash, it knows that that means the next character is going to be treated specially. So why do they call it escape? I really don't know, but they're called escape characters because maybe they escape from the normal rules of programming. So we used the backslash character to show the double quotes around world. Suppose we wanted to put single quotes around goodbye. Well, we would do this: slash single quote slash single quote. Let's see what happens now. Compile it and run it. Okay, so now we have goodbye with single quotes and world with double quotes. What are some of these other things? Tab character. What does a tab character do? Well, in the old days, when we had typewriters, and believe it or not, this actually goes back to the days of typewriters and teletype machines. If you wanted the printer to skip a certain number of spaces, you would put in a tab character, and that would cause the printer to skip to the next column. So you could print things out in column. Let's see what a tab character does if we put it in between goodbye and world. I'm going to compile it. I'm going to tell it to always save before compiling because I'm tired of clicking yes. And click run. Okay, notice that now it put in extra spaces between goodbye and world. So it actually tabbed the world over a little bit. If we put in another tab character, it'll go even further. Let's try that. Now it tabbed over even further. Tabs are not actually all that useful anymore. They used to be useful when we had teletype machines and things like that, but they still have their place. Suppose we wanted goodbye to be on one line and world to be on the next line. Well, then we would put /n. That's for new line. That will cause a line break to occur between these two words. We'll compile this and run it. There it is. Goodbye, next line, world. Okay, and the last escape character that we haven't covered is the backslash. So let's say we wanted to put a backslash between goodbye and world. Well, you do that by typing 2 backslashes. So we'll compile and run it, and there's our backslash showing up. So even though we typed in 2 backslashes, the computer knows that when it sees the first backslash, that what it needs to happen is print out the next character, which is just the backslash by itself. So that's what escape characters are. So we know what a string variable is. We created a string variable called s. We assigned a value to that variable. We printed it out. Then we assigned a new value to the same variable, and we printed that out. Variables are very important because they can be changed, and you can assign any value you want to them at different times. And we'll be going over that a lot. But for now, this is all about strings and escape characters.